Over the next wave on the Hilton Head News, encouraging numbers for the island, but testing totals still low as we cope with coronavirus. Those stimulus checks supposedly on the way for many of you. Certainly a different narrative than the Happy Heritage Week we'd hoped for. We'll catch you up straight ahead on an important special edition of the Hilton Head News. Welcome in, and thanks for joining us for the Hilton Head News. I'm Bob Stevens. Plenty to get to in the next 30 minutes, beginning with our latest response to the coronavirus. The last few days has actually seen a flattening of the curve in the low country a bit, with just a little over 20 cases of COVID-19 reported on the island as of Monday, and just 2 deaths. But the most important numbers we're going to be watching is the progression of the virus, the number of tests that have actually been processed, and the date with which the peak is expected. Only about 30,000 South Carolinians have actually been tested for COVID-19. The peak of the pandemic not expected to be reached until about the 1st of May. May Day, indeed. Boy, it feels strange to be saying Happy Heritage this week with no tournament to look forward to. The impact of the loss of the heritage, especially hard on the low country compared to other tour events. Studies have said the area reaps an economic impact of over $100 million every year. Low country charities usually receive more than $3 million each year. Civic groups losing money they'd make selling concessions. The Hilton Head High and Bluffton High football teams losing money for equipment and summer camps. And of course, the hospitality industry losing millions of dollars, multiplied when the world misses out on seeing the low country at its springtime best. Hilton Head's Town Council taking some heat from the public, but didn't have much choice in its last Friday emergency meeting that backed off a town-wide ban on short-term rentals to anyone. The town faced numerous lawsuits from the rental companies if it didn't back off to just enforcing the governor's executive order that only bans short-term rentals to persons in areas considered hotspots by the CDC. If you've sent in your tax returns for either of the last 2 years and asked the IRS to direct deposit your refund, you're going to be among the first to see those coronavirus stimulus checks any day now. 70 million Americans could get their checks by the end of the week. If the IRS doesn't have your bank account information or you haven't filed your 2018 or 2019 taxes, you can log on to a new IRS portal, irs.gov/coronavirus, and click on the non-filers tab. The Treasury Department says it could take until August or September to get those checks printed and mailed if they don't already have your info. If you're fighting off boredom while staying at home during the pandemic, why not take a few minutes, and it should only take you that long, and fill out the census form, which you can do online at my2020census.gov. Only 43% of South Carolinians have responded so far, only 36% in Beaufort County at the beginning of the week. The census determines representation in all sorts of governmental bodies and will also help determine federal and state aid to you and your neighbors. It's also the law. Beaufort County schools might be on spring break this week, but the school board is already working on next fall, approving 2 different calendars, one with an August 17th start date that the state is asking for, and one with an August 10th opening day, hoping the state will let us start early. Both calendars get the first semester over before Christmas break. The early start date would offer up a whole week off at Thanksgiving and front-load makeup days for the possibility of hurricanes. Schools have lost 22 days in the last 4 years to storm evacuations. Remember that $1.8 billion surplus the state thought it might have to dole out for the next fiscal year? Never mind. State economists now saying we'll lose at least $500 million of it by the end of this budget year because of the pandemic, and we might lose around $650 million more next year. They also say those numbers are more of a dart throw and they'll be refined in the months ahead. We told you a couple of weeks ago about the Community Foundation of the Low Country's challenge for us to donate $100,000 to help local charities to respond to the coronavirus, and then they'd match it. Well, Low Country residents got the job done in a little more than a week. The first checks are being written to 11 organizations in the area for over $158,000 among the charities on the island who will get to continue to help all of us. The Sandalwood Food Pantry, Pantry and Second Helpings will feed those who need it. Deep Well will continue to help with food and housing. Hopeful Horizons will feed and shelter abuse victims. And the Neighborhood Outreach Connection will help pay the rent for laid-off workers in the communities they serve. Yet another note of community kindness coming out of the otherwise grim news these days. Local first responders are, when they can and with enough notice, been driving around to kids' homes to substitute for birthday parties that have not been able to be held. Again, call the fire department and just let them know a couple of days ahead of time, and you might get a special visit. And just what we need to hear while we're sheltered in place for at least the next couple of weeks. The forecasters at Colorado State are predicting 4 major hurricanes in the Atlantic this season, slightly busier than last year. They're calling for 16 named storms overall, 8 of them becoming hurricanes, and say there's a 45% chance of a Category 3 hitting somewhere on the Atlantic coast. Ocean temperatures have been a bit above normal over the winter. The National Hurricane Center is holding off on its season predictions until we get to May. For more information on these and other low country stories, we invite you to check out the sources listed on your screen. Still to come, we'll check in on what you can do around the island to keep busy, even while sheltering in place. And we'll also find out if there are any new rules of the road for bikers on the island during the outbreak. Stay with us.